Hey guys, I'm carrying on my series against chess.com's character bots, and next up I've now completed the intermediate level bots and we're now into the advanced ones. So first up in advanced is Antonio, rated estimated 1500, and Antonio comes from Paraguay. So let's go through. We're playing random colours, so I start with black, E4 and E6, the French defence. This is my go-to at the moment. D4, D5, and then knight comes out, and C5. Now bishop comes out, and we swap off bishops. And this leaves, it's two attackers, two defenders, so there's an exchange of pawns. So we have like the French exchange, basically. And now knight comes out, preparing to castle. I bring my knight out. I want to be able to castle my king, so I'm thinking of bringing my bishop out there to avoid any checks. And now I put my queen on e6 with a check. Then the queen blocks and we exchange queens, but he recaptures with the king. He had the option of recapturing with this knight as well, but this knight, I guess, is enjoying looking at this pawn, which is defended only by this knight, which is attacked by that bishop, so maybe he's got ideas about winning a pawn there. Bishop comes out, he grabs the pawn on c5, I bring my knight out, defending this knight and also hitting the pawn on c5, which advances, and b takes c6. Bishop retreats one square, and now I simply castle. So material is equal, exactly. We've both got two knights, dark squared bishop. He's got two sets of three pawns that are still in the starting blocks. I've got a little bit more pawn action in the center of the board. However, I've got an isolated pawn on the A file and actually three pawn islands, but my king safety is pretty good. My king is castled and his will never castle. Now pawn comes out to G4. I could have just captured it with the knight, but that would have left this bishop undefended. So I bring my rook behind the bishop in line with my opponent's king. So that is preparing for a discovered check. Right? Now if my opponent doesn't either block it or move the king, then I would have a free move with my bishop on the next turn. He does notice, moves the king over. Now I grab the pawn. Now that my bishop's defended, we swap off bishops, and now I'm a pawn ahead, and we swap off rooks. So I'm very happy here because I've got this king safety, right? It's a big advantage. Although my pawns are maybe going to be a bit harder to defend, I've still got enough material on the board to defend them. And also look now at white's pawns are suddenly looking a bit less robust. So anyway, I grab another pawn. Rook comes in to attack the knight. Rook defends the knight. A4, king across to shoo away the rook. And the rook, for some reason, decides to swap it off for a knight. So I think the thing about Antonio is that as long as you play good principled chess and take your time, he will still blunder. This 1500 rated bot, I don't know if it feels like 1500, but he does play some sharp chess in the endgame, so you have got to be careful. Check there, and now my knight comes back to f6, comfortable square. I now promote my knight up to e4, so it's controlling more of the center of the board. There's more knight maneuvering. There's now two attackers against c6 and only one defender. So I push c5, attacking a knight, counterattacks my rook. Now here I've got a choice. I guess I could go ahead and capture the knight, and if knight captures, I've got knight captures, which would leave me a knight in front. However, for some reason, I decide to move my king. Oh, well, I'm in check, of course, aren't I? Yeah. So look, you've got to watch out for this. So I'm thinking only about this pawn. I advance the pawn, leave myself open to a knight fork on my rook. And now we have knight takes pawn. So I grab the knight, and he takes my knight instead of taking my rook. So this should be quite an easy end game, having the only rook on the board. So we throw in a check, advance the king, move across to attack the pawn. We have some swapping off of pawns, and now I'm just trying to check my way into some kind of advantage. Pawn goes there, king blocks, check, grab the pawn, check, move in, and now I throw in a check in between. I didn't have to defend h7 straight away, and now I push h7. And the knight goes into the corner. It's possible for a king to trap the knight in a corner, so you have to be pretty careful. Okay, now I'm just starting to squeeze my way up the board. And so here's another knight fork. So you've got to be on your toes. Even when you think there's a material advantage, bang, he's just taken out another pawn. Now I should be absolutely fine. This a-pawn could probably dash to the line and win the game. So we throw in a check. We're just starting to squeeze the king into the corner of the board. And it's basic manoeuvring now. Check. So moving to here, I'm 2 squares diagonally away from the knight, which means that knight cannot get near me. And now my rook goes to the edge of the board, and it's a case of a standard checkmate now. So if at any point you've got your kings in opposition, the enemy king at the edge of the board, and you put a major piece, that's a rook or a queen, on the same line as the king on the edge, then that will be checkmate because my king is controlling these 3 squares in front of him. However, I can't now just move across because the king would simply move back. So I need to bring in a pawn. And now this pawn is covering that square. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 squares covered. And now whatever white does, rook to a1 is checkmate. So there you go. That is how to beat Antonio, supposedly rated 1500. And I think that's kind of about right. But I found it quite an easy win, so I'd probably rate him more about 1400. Antonio will make mistakes. Antonio will blunder. The key is not to be the first to blunder. So you've got to play tight. You've got to watch your back. He is sneaky. He knows his tactics. So, but as long as you do that, you know, if you're rated around 1400, 1300, you should have a crack at Antonio. I think you can take him. See you later.